Hey, it's your boy, TheJerkDonny here, and we're back with the next episode of Arrow to a Botany. As I move the mic while I'm talking.
we're a professional podcast, Donovan.
Exactly. But yeah, let's just jump right into it, and
I'm leaving.
Today we are going to do a podcast where actually my co-host Bateman, the well-hung Bateman, has
as opposed to the not well-hung Bateman,
actually brought notes. Unlike the first, we haven't done this since the first episode where we were actually prepared for once.
We were kind of prepared. Like, I don't know, we're ish.
But starting with the tradition, we'll start with the only science that matters, memes. So in meme news, it's not really a meme. I just wanted to mention this in the podcast to get your perspective of it. It's not really science, I guess, but have you heard what happened with where is the shooting? It was in there was a school shooting.
Oh no, really?
In I can't remember the school, but anyways, the guy wasn't gonna actually shoot anyone. He was just brought a shotgun to kill himself, and the coach hugged him until police came. Did you see that video?
Nope.
Oh, it's quite sad.
Bring it up. Let's just stop the podcast. No, I'm kidding. Don't bring it up.
No, but yeah, the coach just hugged him until
he brought a shotgun to kill himself in front of everyone.
I think so.
Huh.
Or no, he was gonna go into a classroom and kill himself. I guess he couldn't do it at home because like his parents are around and stuff.
I don't know. It just sounds like he just wanted the last fuck you to all of them.
No, he just wanted to commit suicide. He was like really sad about it. Apparently, he was like a wide receiver at the university, and his life just kind of fell apart.
Yeah, but isn't like everyone who does a school shooting suicidal, which is why they do that, because they know they're not going to get out of it alive?
Yeah, but no, he didn't have any intent of shooting anyone, just because he had multiple opportunities to like shoot people, and he just did not like raise his gun.
Huh.
He just like walked like this the entire time. And then because he was supposed to go, he was supposed to go have a meeting with like one of like the teachers or whatever.
Uh-huh.
And I guess he thought he was in trouble or something, so he was gonna kill himself. So, yeah.
And what does this have to do with memes? This is pretty sad. This was the complete opposite of the memes I was hoping for.
Well, I just thought I'd bring it up. I don't know why.
It's not a meme.
I was watching that this morning.
There's no memes about that. It's just a horrible story. Oh my god.
Anyways, into the biology.
Wow. Okay, I'm gonna need a break. Let's talk about dreams. That's what we're doing, right?
Right.
You go ahead.
Oh, you want me to start?
Yeah, of course.
Oh, I am not prepared
host.
for this at all.
You're the host.
So
I like how you just said too earlier, like, oh, this is the first episode we've been prepared for in a while, and now you just say,
no,
I'm
I
not
said.
prepared at all.
Let me clarify. We'll rewind the track, but I said that you were prepared.
Oh.
I just kind of fly by the seam of my pants. But anyways, today for the psychology side of the podcast, we're going to talk about dreams and do dreams actually mean anything? Psychology has like always been trying to study dreams and see what like dreams actually mean. Back in the Greek times, when they used to like interpret dreams, they always thought it was like a way to talk to like the gods or to fulfill destiny. But later, people have believed that
my gods are pretty fucked up.
that dreams are like a way to. Well, I guess I should talk about two perspectives first before we get into that. So, as always, the father of psychology, Freud, had to basically put his stamp on what he believed dreams were. Now, before we get into this, I just want to see, what do you know about Freud? Sigmund Freud. I
know that I've never pronounced his name. I always just saw Freud, and I'm like, oh, that doesn't sound like anything to me. And then I always think, wasn't there a guy with a lion, and the lion killed him? Or tiger? Is that in Vegas?
Mm-hmm. That's Freud didn't die to a lion.
No, I know. But isn't there like a famous magician in Vegas that had like a lion?
Yeah.
A tiger, and it like ate him.
Yeah.
That's what I know.
So nothing.
No. I feel like psychologists know about this guy.
You have to. He's basically he laid the foundation for what psychology is.
Oh, one thing I do know about him is he's a very controversial man.
Oh yeah,
because
we're gonna get into that.
That's pretty much what I know. Is like he had all these really great ideas, but they're either like people say that they're not good or they're. Oh, he also had some weird thing about his mother.
Yeah, no, we'll get into that.
He had the mother theory.
Yeah,
right,
we'll get into that. But no, the thing that as soon as I mention it, you'll probably know it is the id, ego, and superego, which is basically the id is your reptilian brain. So it's like your sex drive. You have to eat. You have to like survive. That's like that.
All right.
The ego is basically like your conscious thoughts. So it's basically like how you do. Basically, it goes like the ego tries to satisfy the id while keeping within the boundaries of the superego. Because the superego is basically what keeps you like not from killing everyone. Because like the id would make you kill everyone, but the superego's like you can't kill someone because there's a consequence. You can't do that because there's a consequence. Like you can't. I can't smack you upside the head right now. My superego would prevent me from that because you would stab me. So like it's that's what basically superego does. It does like all like what humans have collectively agreed upon. It's your unconscious thing telling you what to do, and your ego tries to go between both of that. And that's basically what his famous work. That's like what he's most known for. That's what everyone in psychology agrees upon, but. We'll get into the stuff he doesn't really, a lot of people agree upon. We can actually do a bunch of episodes on Freud and a lot of stuff he did. But, the thing what's really controversial about Freud, and it actually links back to his, dream theory, is that while he was looking into, like, the superego and the unconscious and all that, he believed that, dreams are, how do I put this? Dreams are what we want to happen, but our unconscious is trying to hide from us. So basically, a lot of what psychology is trying to access what our unconscious thought is, right? So basically, he believed that dreams were trying to like show us what our actual true desires are that our unconscious wants. So for example, what he would believe is like, let's just say you had a dream that like you saw a snake go into like a hole. That means you want to have sex with somebody.
A snake?
Yeah.
I want to have a sex with a snake.
No. You're not getting the point.
No, this isn't related to the topic at all. I'm just throwing that out there.
Any snakes out there? And then like the weirdest one I always thought was like the color yellow. If that's in any part of your dream, that means urine. But like for Freud, the problem that a lot of people have with Freud is that he's so fixated on everything's about sex. And everything revolves around sex. Oh. Like, he's the one that believes that that all sons want to fuck their mother, and that's why they hate their dad, and all daughters want to fuck their dad, that's why they hate their mom.
Oh my god. And like, you meet people that, yeah, maybe they're like that, but oftentimes I find either people like both their parents or they dislike both their parents.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, maybe there's those cases too where it's like, oh, I hate my mother, I'm a guy, or I hate my sister, I'm a man.
Yeah, and he believes that like society is basically that we suppress these feelings, and that's like he has like a lot of like you've probably heard of like anal fixations.
Oh, go on about that. What now?
You haven't heard of anal fix? So there's man.
No. Okay, the whole podcast. This is what we're talking about now. Oh my lord, go on. Please
You've never heard of this?
Go on, please.
Okay, there's like 5 fixations that you go through while you're a kid, and one's called the anal phase, which is basically, for those who don't know, it's for children that are like discovering the function of their asshole.
Oh my god.
So basically, there's this belief that, or I guess it's more of a theory, and it's, I don't remember like what the exact, if like, I know it's very like, some agree with it, some don't.
Right.
But basically, the anal fixation is basically that, you know how, you've probably heard the term that this person's anal about things, right?
Yeah.
That's where it came from. So basically, if during your development stage as a child, if you had like let's just say you're discovering your how to use your anus, And you know how kids, like, when they're discovering stuff, they, like, play around in there, try to figure out what's going on, right? So, if the parents or guardian is, like, condemns them or makes them feel bad about that phase, they could become to what you would associate anal traits with, like, everything has to be in a specific way and all that. And that's where they believe that you get, I think it's called libido? Yeah, libido, which means a fixation at that point. So that's people who have, like, anal fixations. There's also, like, oral fixations when you start, like, putting everything in your mouth.
Uh-huh.
If you're crappy to a kid there, then they're more likely to develop, like, habits of, like, smoking, dick sucking. No.
I was just gonna say.
No, but, like, actually, I think there actually is a study that actually shows that's true.
Gulping on that dick.
Yeah, like, you're more likely to, like...
Gluck 9000.
No, but, like, you're more likely to have, like, addictive habits, is what they assume. And, like, stuff like smoking cigarettes, drinking booze and stuff like that. But, yeah, that's...
If you're not allowed to, like, experiment or explore.
Well, like, let's just say, like, you're a kid, and, like, you put mud in your mouth.
Uh-huh.
And your mom, like if your mom says, like, no, don't do that, that's fine.
Yeah.
But if your mom, like, embarrasses you or makes you feel bad for, like, don't do that, you're a bad kid for doing that, then you get what's called a libido, and you get a fixation on that point.
And this is all Freud's theory.
Yeah.
Okay.
A part of it is true. It's just the problem, what people have is the sexual overtones of everything that Freud says.
Yeah.
Because, like, he has, like, I can't remember what the complex is called. I can probably look it up quickly, but it's like the mom-son complex is what was what he had a lot of, and that's what shows, like, a lot of problems.
Is it just not Freudian? Or what's the hell's the... There's gotta be...
Oh, yeah, it's probably called, like, Freudian. No, you're thinking of Freudian slip.
What the hell's that? That sounds like a sick move on my fucking skateboard.
Freudian slip is, like, let's just say you're talking to, like, a professor of yours that's quite attractive, and you're talking to her, and you accidentally say something like, oh, your boobs look really great today, instead of, like, your smile looks really great today. That's what's considered a Freudian slip, which basically means that you just expose your unconsciousness that you want to...
Oh, alright.
Yeah, so that's what people say Freudian slip, because you know, like, on the news where people are just, like, they accidentally say, like, oh, look at that person's tits. I mean, dimples. Or something like that.
Yeah, I've seen those, for sure.
Yeah, that's what a Freudian slip is. So that's what... I guess this is, like, your first knowing of Freud, eh? I'm just giving you, like, a crash course on Freud.
Yeah, so wait, go on. I got railroaded from anal. Where were we?
We were talking about dreams.
Oh, right. That's
so I was telling you, like,
anal
all, like,
dreams.
the sexual stuff he has about it. So basically, he finds that, so the ego is kind of like, is our defense against, like, our urges and against, like, the superego and the id, right? Because it tries to please both sides while dealing with everything, right?
Right.
So when you sleep, Freud believed that your ego's defenses come down, so then your superego takes over and you see what you truly desire.
Oh, I see.
But the thing that's interesting is this doesn't account for kids, because kids, when they just dream of, like, consequences and stuff. And, like, they just, like, do, like, fulfillment dreams. Whereas in adults, you have, like, you say you have weird dreams, right?
Well, I mean, yeah, like, I always say that, and I've always thought, too, like, people dream about, you know, fantasy. They dream about things that they want but they don't have or can't have.
Yeah. Yeah, Freud believed that dreams are, like, have more, like, it's manifest content, and that they want to...
But the big thing is, though, what do nightmares have to do with all this?
Nightmares is I think he says, like, the actual realization of what you want, in a lot of cases. So, like, let's just say, like, there's different, there's different methods that psychology uses. There's, displacement, which is basically, you displace your emotions onto something else. So, like, an example of that would be... I'm trying to remember. So, let's just say I don't like somebody, right?
That's not going to happen.
Let's just say I don't like you, and I describe you as somebody who is very arrogant, someone who's very...
I'm feeling attacked.
Someone who is very selfish and all that. Freud believes when you start describing someone like that for no reason, like we're close friends, right? If I just start describing you as that to other people, he believes that as displacement. So I'm basically saying true feelings I believe about myself onto you because I'm too afraid to say it about myself.
Oh.
So in the dream world, like, let's just say you had a dream and, like, you randomly walked by and you see, like, two people having sex. Mm-hmm. He believes that's displacement to you really having the urge to want to fulfill a sexual fantasy. Yeah. There's also, like, symbolism, which is kind of self-explanatory, which is, like, something represents something. For example, he believes that yellow represents,
I don't have
urine.
Color in my dreams.
That's interesting. So everything's black and white to you?
No, it's all black. It's black with outlines, if that makes sense.
Sounds really fucking dark.
Yeah.
And then there's also, like, what was the other one I was going to say? There's, like, I think it's called condensation, which is basically that, you have, like, one broad statement you have on something, but it actually has, like, small beliefs that you do not want to, like... Your subconscious knows, unconscious knows what it is, but your conscious refuses it. So basically what he believes is that dreams is a way to access the unconscious, and it's how it leaks through. And that's basically, your dreams is trying to, like, push away what you actually want, if that makes any sense.
So... Freud was also criticized for other things, right? Like, besides just emphasizing sex and everything.
Yeah, he was on, he used to think that, what was it? Cocaine was a way to get to the unconscious as well.
See, that's the thing, though, too. It's like...
But no, that was in his later life. This was in, when he talked about dreams, he published his book, Interpretation of Dreams, in 1918. That was still when he was sane mind.
Right.
Later in his life, when he was, did cocaine quite a bit. That's where people kind of felt he fell off the deep end.
No kidding.
And there's some, it's interesting, some of his later books, like after, I guess he was he was on his dying bed, he was actually just starting to, like, disprove, like, his own stuff.
Huh.
Yeah.
So, like, I'll throw out this whole thing, though, too. It's like, he's known as being the father of psychology, and he talks about all these things and whatnot, but for something like Darwin had all these theories, and a lot of them were good, and a lot of them were pretty damn spot on, but
yeah.
Of course they had holes in them that were filled later, and some of them were even just entirely disproven. And so I'm wondering if there's anything that the same thing with Freud is, he's the father, and yeah, he probably has a lot of good ideas, but, like, is he, like, were all these ideas, are all these ideas he has still sort of seen as a consensus of, yeah, these are accurate, or have a lot of them just been, like, looked down upon?
There's a lot of Freud's work that's actually been looked down upon, but when it comes to dreams, I believe it's 50-50. Like, from, like, to the extent he goes, if I'm just going to sprinkle my personal opinion into this, and from what I've learned from my studies of psychology, is the whole everything's about sex part of Freud's work, I do not believe, because that just seems very focused, and it seems like Freud had a lot of sex problems growing up. I know he had a problem with his mother.
Yeah.
So that just might be him describing it, but when you look at his work, basically what he was trying to say is dreams were a way to look into someone's mental complex.
Right.
Which is something I do believe has some merit, and has, like, a lot of people, like, the next person I was going to talk about is Carl Jung, and he's the other person. He's the more theory everyone follows when it comes to dream interpretations.
Okay, yeah.
But he's like he has a different model than Freud. Like, Freud was like, this was the unconscious trying to hide everything. This is the only way you can actually get into someone's minds, type thing. Where Jung argued that dreams were, like, as you said, like, trying to fulfill wishes.
Right.
Like, trying to fulfill what you wanted. Whereas Freud looked at it as, like, trying to hide things and you're trying to interpret what someone is. Or this is just this is like the conscious. This is, I guess, to simplify it, Jung believes dreams are conscious, where Freud believes dreams are unconscious. Yeah. And I kind of side more with him because the process, because it's easier to experiment on it when you look at dreams and you look at like how people interpret dreams. But I guess we'll get to the point where I want to get to with this discussion is, do you think dreams actually carry meaning?
See, that's a good thing, because I was going to say, like, what are the other theories on dreams? And,
because there's a bunch of other people, like, obviously, they're not as, like, well-known nowadays, because there's, like, a lot of different scientists, and I find nowadays you don't get, which is another thing I want to talk about in a podcast, is that you don't really get, like, too many scientists where you're, like, he's, like, the godfather of nowadays, you know what I mean?
Oh, yeah.
It's very hard to hear of, like, well-known scientists. It's just, like...
Yeah. Well, you have, like, maybe, like, Richard Dawkins or shit like that.
But you usually hear, like, there's, like, a lot of papers you can just go through that are, like, actually carry some merit, but nobody really knows about it.
Well, yeah, a lot of science now is not in leaps. It's just gradual additions to underlying theories. Like, there's very little, like, what do we call them? Like paradigm shifts, like where there's not, like, we pretty much have established a lot of these really great foundational sort of theories, and now we're just kind of building off of them. We're not really changing things or creating a whole bunch of new theories out there. It's mainly just add-ons to stuff. I'm gonna stop clicking my pens. People don't leave. So there's two things that I think I should probably throw in here about my view of psychologists, and that's one is that
we're all dumb.
No.
Our science is not actually a science? I've heard all these before.
I'm not saying any of that. One is that, from the way I see psychology, I think psychologists are scientists to an extent, as long as they're following the proper procedures.
Yeah.
But the two things I see with psychologists is that, well, one, I think, so here's the thing. I think it's very hard, and I've learned this from animal behavior. I think it's very difficult to study people.
Yeah.
Because we're one of the most complex mechanisms on the planet.
Exactly.
And we're looking at the brain, one of the most complex of the complex parts of us.
Yeah.
And
I would say the most complex part.
Definitely. Like, arguably the most complex part. And I think it's hard to sort of generalize everybody together, because now we're seeing that, like, each individual has their own combination of, different anxieties or mental disorders or physical problems.
Well,
and
that's why with psychology now, everything's based on what's called case studies. So everybody does, like, a study based off of individual cases. Because, like,
right.
As you mentioned... That
makes more sense, because it's so hard to take 30 individuals and then try to structure a theory based on those 30
well, that's
to
what
the entire
psychology.
population.
That's what I was going to bring it to, too. This is a good thing you brought this up. Is because when Carl Jung and Sigmund Freud did this was like the early 90s. And they've worked all the way up to like 1970. And they're doing this all based off of, without looking at the brain. Like, they're doing based off of how because they're doctors and they've had patients, and this is how they would try to get success out of
like
patients.
Just testimony.
And what I find crazy is a lot of what they say holds up somewhat, because I do believe that, like, yes, there is some meaning to some dreams, but as I was going to get to when we talk about the problems, I don't want to... I was looking at a bunch of articles, and there's none that there was none I could actually just bring forward and be like, oh, this explains everything, because they all generally said a lot of the same things, which is that the problem with dream interpretation is it doesn't take different cultures into consideration. So, like, for example, the biggest one is that a snake over here means deceptive and evil. Or a snake in, like, I believe it was, like, an African country, actually means, like, victory and good.
Oh, yeah, sure.
And there's, like, different things that, like, a lot of, if you look at, like, Jung's and Freud's work, especially when they're looking at, like, symbolism, like, you can't say that yellow just means urine. Because yellow to some other countries means something else, you know what I mean?
Well, yeah, and it's like, I think That's the whole thing with this. It's so complex, and we don't even understand the human brain fully. How are we supposed to understand dreams?
Yeah.
And personality is a huge thing too. Is everyone grows up in different environments, and so that personality just changes everything as well.
Yeah. The other problem I also found with dreams is that, and what a lot of people brought up too, is that a lot of your dreams are just stuff that's happened. You know what I mean?
Oh, like a memory.
Yeah, like a memory.
Yeah.
A lot of dreams are just, oh, I went walking in a park.
Yeah, and
not every part of your dream has to be like, oh, what does this small thing mean? Oh, what does this mean? Oh, this means this.
Well, yeah.
The problem I find with psychology, and what a lot of people find with psychology, which is why a lot of people will laugh at psychology, is that they try to find a lot of meaning in stuff that's not there.
That's exactly what I was going to say. So I had the 2 points. The first one was that, it's hard to study humans because there's just so much variability.
Yeah.
And it's hard to apply that to everyone. Like, maybe a dream for one person is saying something about what they want. Maybe a dream for another person is just like, yeah, I remember this person's face and I remember this landscape. And the second point, which is the big one, like exactly as you said, is not everything in a human is an adaptive thing.
Yeah.
When we talk about evolution, it's like, yes, there's a lot of things out there that are adaptive, but sometimes we have these just constraints and just shit happens. And as a result of one thing happening, something else happens. So maybe the result of having a big brain with all this intelligence is you have to waste 8 hours of every day in this weird state of just like different neurons firing in some random pattern. Maybe that's what a dream is.
Well, also, the reason you have to sleep is so you can actually recharge. Because if you stay up for a long time, your brain just gets exhausted and you start hallucinating.
Oh, yeah. No, I know that for sure. I'm just meaning that, like, exactly as you said, it is every scientist out there, and this is the one thing, is if you look at something in the natural world, like humans, for example, and you say, oh, here's this bone in that body. I'm going to study what is the adaptive significance of this. You can study it for years and decades and centuries if you go about it the wrong way. What if this bone that you're looking at is just non-adaptive? Maybe there's no point of it. Maybe it's just there because of some weird evolutionary mix-up. Yeah. Maybe it's just there from some weird constraint or some,
for example, the appendix in the human.
Yeah, I mean, people are saying now there's some points of that. But yeah, we have vestigial organs, which used to be adaptive, but sometimes there's things like, what the hell was it? I can't remember. I think it might be in giraffes, where there's this really long, there's parts of the human anatomy that at no point in time were adaptive.
Yeah.
You just have these really bizarre, like, blood
the tubes to the gonads, that doesn't seem very adaptive because it's like tied in a knot.
Well, some things are not adaptive, and so that's what I'm saying is, like, with a lot of psychologists, they might be wasting their time by just doing all this stuff. Like, what if they're not adaptive at all? What if it's been a century that people have been studying this and it's just a random fucking mess of neurons that fire off that our conscious memory tries to actually make meaning of, and maybe that's what it is.
There's a lot of science to prove that the unconscious is actually a thing, because like we unconsciously adapt to certain things. Like if you see because you can flash something which no one can perceive, and people will unconsciously interpret it, which proves that the unconscious is a thing. The problem I find is people are trying to find so many ways to delve into the unconscious.
I don't like the word prove either.
Yeah. But yeah, like they want to try to like dive into like our unconscious, which is basically just our innate survival instincts that we have. And I don't believe that dreams is the way to go about it. The biggest problem, and which is what you'll hear a lot in psychology.
Well, it's because they're trying to conclude.
Yeah.
With very little evidence that dreams are the link to the unconscious memory, and it's like they're trying to.
Or it's the link to conscious memory.
They're trying to take evidence and make a conclusion on that, and that's not how science is done.
I believe they do have like a good start with like a lot of the stuff that they have, but I feel like what I'll say, probably you'll hear me say a lot when it comes to psychology, a lot of research needs to be more done, and maybe a different way to look at it. I just read something I found hilarious. Apparently a snake represents a penis.
It's definitely victory.
And in other places it represents danger, which I always thought was funny.
Well, two things are kind of the same.
But yeah, no.
But that's the thing, Donovan, is you have 50% of the scientific community, psychologists and in the scientific community. 50% of them are are agreeing with this and the other 50% aren't, that's not good enough.
That's usually psychology for you, though, on a lot of things.
But again, that's the problem.
Well, the thing
you don't have you don't have enough certainty with your theories that the majority of your community is behind this stuff.
Exactly. That's why I'm on the side that says that dream interpretation, it's more like a fun party gag, you know what I mean? Like I do this with like my friends. I'll be like, tell me about your dreams, like if I'm really drunk, and then I'll do based off of what I've learned in psychology to interpret it for them.
Yeah.
And I don't take it very seriously, and I think it's just a fun thing.
That's an excellent way to look at it and to conclude it.
Because like I do believe that maybe one day we're all wrong, and I hope. You know what? I would hope, because like dreams are very. I understand like why people want to research it, because it's a very interesting aspect of humankind, and actually dreams have caused people to not do certain things. Like people have dreamed they've got cheated on by their husband and then they broke up with them. People have dreamed that the plane they're going on tomorrow crashes and they cancel their flight. So people do hold a lot of value in dreams.
That's a good point, actually.
It's just, honestly, if I was to give you a takeaway, don't give a fuck of what your dreams mean, because, like, their dreams are not reality.
That's fair.
Yeah. But I do think there should be more research done on dreams, because you never know what it could actually be.
Yeah.
And I hope it just, because, like, you never know. In 20 years, it could just be a random firing neurons. It could be our message to God. You never know.
Yeah, my gods are really strange. I'll just say that again.
But I think we should segue into the biology side of things.
Great, let's segue. How are you going to segue?
How are we going to segue? Well, my friend Bateman here's going to do it for the juggalos, and I'll juggle it. Let's do this!
Alright, so we're going to talk about anti-vax.
I thought you were being serious. I'm like,
No. I'm not.
But I guess before we go into it, how do you feel about dreams now? Do you feel like you learned anything?
I literally feel the exact same. I feel like I come out of that with absolutely no change in what I feel about dreams.
Did you at least learn the perspective
of
dreams?
No, I got a nice little dive into the psychology and sort of the studies.
Don't worry, I'll bring up some more Freud stuff, because I guess
like
before you start this biology, I'll give you a little preview of what we'll talk about next time. This is something I've actually wrote a paper on. I never published it, but I did it for one of my school assignments. I'm going to talk about... how do I want to say this? The power of fear is what I want to talk about with psychology.
Joker.
And I'm going to talk about it in regards to propaganda. And
you're going to talk about Harvey Dent?
No.
Alfred.
No, and I'm going to talk about
Can you
it.
do it in a Batman voice the whole time?
No. Because I'll never be able to talk again. And I'll probably destroy my vocal cords. And then I'm going to also talk to it with regards to certain leaders. Specifically, I'll definitely touch on Adolf Hitler. I'll touch on Mussolini, and basically the World War II Axis leaders, except Japan, because that one is hard to research on. And they also have a different perspective on it. And what's Francesco Franco? That's the one I actually wrote a paper on. Is how, because he's actually an interesting case, and Freud actually does do some talk about the whole perception of fear and how it works, and I think it'd be a very interesting talk.
Yeah, I'm excited for that.
Yeah, I'll just have to bring up my old paper and we'll see how we do.
I will be talking as Batman the entire time, or I will be rebuttaling as Batman. Just FYI. So, Donnie, my question for you is, previously in a couple podcasts before, you were talking about how you don't necessarily trust scientists all the time, and there's sort of some skepticality there with your viewpoints towards scientists.
Yeah. And
I want to talk more about psychology. Is why do you think you distrust, and why do you think some people don't trust scientists now? And what are sort of your skepticisms? What are your sort of reasons for behind why you might see scientists as not trustworthy people?
To boil it down, is because most scientists think that what they're saying is 100% true. And I never believe anything's 100% true.
Huh.
The way I look at it is...
Which scientists are you talking about?
Freud. Well, the thing is I look at everything... The way I was taught to look at science, and the way I will always look at science is because it's the only way to me it makes sense, is no matter what a scientist says, I'll always be skeptic of everything they say. Because you can never go into anything that anyone says scientifically and believe everything they say. I believe you have to, like, let's just say, let's bring it back to the dream thing. Carl Jung presents this. I believe that you read what he says and then you actually go in and research it yourself. And like, look at what other people are saying, and then you kind of weigh both of them together and come up with what you believe is the right answer, or what is shown to be the right answer based off of evidence. The problem when it comes to scientists is that I think it's just because I'm more in the psychology bubble. Is that
I think yeah, maybe that's it. Maybe you're seeing the psychology papers because like I trust a lot of my colleagues. Yeah. Like immensely. Yeah. Because we have that sort of understanding, I think, of all of our theories. Yeah.
But the thing is like, even if you published a paper, I would be skeptic of it. Because,
of course.
Because I believe the problem I see a lot with science nowadays, or well, I should say young people getting into science, is they just believe everything that's said. And the problem with that is we've seen it with science. It evolves. It changes. And the problem is when someone sees something new, a lot of people are just bound to jump onto, oh no, the old theory is right, not the new one. And the reason and that's why I'm skeptic, is because also if you look at psychology has been burned a lot of times in that bubble, because a lot of people just come in and be like, oh, I'm a psychologist now. Because back in the day, becoming a psychologist was quite easy. You literally just said, I'm a psychologist, because it was a new thing. The difference between biology, chemistry, and physics is a lot of that is proven in, like, evidence, like DNA evidence, or, like, studies that show, like for example, like microbials, like, growing and showing, like, they produce this disease. It is hard to disprove that. When it comes to psychology, it's just like, this person has this disease. This is what we believe is what caused this disease. Yeah. We can't really look at it, but we go based off of their behaviors and stuff. Right. The problem with psychology is, until like about the 90s, they didn't incorporate biology into it. Psychology refused for a long time to incorporate. There even to this day are psychologists that refuse to accept biological aspects into psychology, which I think is quite dumb and, as I will probably swear, fucking retarded. And because the three things you base psychology on is behavior, which is obviously something you can measure, because, like, I punch you, let's see what your behavior is, right? There's obviously the neurological side, which is basically how people interact, and I can't remember the other one. I think it's emotion. And emotion is another thing you can measure. The problem with a lot of psychology is they don't measure it on these things. And the other problem about psychology is, unlike biology, it changes with what people think. So, because psychology is a lot of measuring how people behave and how people think, 20 years from now, it'll be different.
Their biases will be different.
Exactly. Because you can't, like, with biology, it's way easier to generalize things, because you can be like, all crows act this way. All of these animals act this way because of survival things. Now, I get that it does change with habitat to habitat, but it's more easy to generalize it like that. Whereas you were saying when it comes to dreams, when it comes to people, you can't really generalize it.
Well, yeah, people are so complex that individual sort of differences are
the only thing that's easy in psychology, I hate to use that word easy, but is neuropsychology, is because, like, except with the brain, obviously, but, like, all the pathways are the same. They fire the exact same way. It's just there's slight mutations here and there, which is, like, the only thing that's when it comes to science. So the reason I'm very skeptic is because there's a lot of psychology stuff that's come out, like, recently.
So most of your problems don't seem to be with scientists in general, but particularly psychologists.
Well, there's also, like, I don't know if you've heard of, like, some studies, like, in, like, physics and chemistry that have been kind of bogus recently. But, like, a lot of them will be, like...
like which ones, though? You have to point to exact cases of this stuff, though.
I don't remember the cases.
Because if you're saying that you don't trust scientists, and then you're just basing this off of feeling as opposed to, like, this was a paper published by whoever so and so, then that's
I don't
mainly
remember
belief,
that.
that's mainly feeling as opposed to reason.
No, I don't remember the exact paper. I just remembered reading this one study, and it was like a chemistry one, and they were talking about how it was dealing with like schizophrenia and how like certain chemicals, if you put into the person's body, would work. But the problem with that study is they had like no control, and then everybody just believed like, oh, this is how it works. And like, if you don't have a control like of how someone normally acts with like schizophrenia, how can you test it with like all these chemicals being in? That was one where I'm just like, I can't really like be like, oh, this is 100% right because there's no control. And that's what I find is a lot of problems. But then again, that's also more like psychology side. And I've also sifted through a lot of like psychology papers. There was like this one study I was reading that was basically like, because I was doing this one class on psychology and the law and how people perceive people like who are in, because like there's these, like if you get put on trial and like police take you into custody, you are more likely to be prosecuted because...
Just for that reason.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And there's a bunch of studies on that. And, like, a lot of the counter studies, like, didn't look at, like, anything scientific. And they didn't, like cite much stuff. They were just basically saying, like, oh, they... not everyone looks at criminals the same way... and all this, and there's just basically when you read through it, it was just someone's like opinion piece rather than them actually referencing anything.
See, it seems like most of your fears here are coming not from scientists, but from people that are misusing science.
Yeah.
And misusing scientific evidence.
Yeah.
Which I can agree, because a lot of people do that. A lot of people do that, I will say that for sure. Like, there's a lot of skewing of scientific information.
Yeah.
But I think every good scientist strives to be as unbiased as possible, and like this is the reason we have peer review, is so the entire scientific community, or not the entire community, but you know, good representatives from that can get involved and can tell these people where they're going wrong, how they can improve, and what to change before they publish something. Yeah. So that it's actually a robust study.
The other problem I have is also when it comes to governments, when they get... They're like, oh, we're gonna get this science team to publish a paper, and then for example, and there's one case. It was in what year was it? 2002. Was it 2002? Anyways, I don't remember the exact time, but Hillary Clinton and her team got a science group together to publish a study based off of what was it? Violence in video games. So the study, basically, the two games they compared were, it was Doom, and it was a racing game. And they showed that, like, they had the same level of aggression in both games, and that it's games that clearly brought this aggression, because in tests they weren't aggressive, but in that they were shown to have aggressive. Now, my professor, at the time, Mike Walensky, and subsequent other studies have shown that this is not true. Like, the problem with that study is when you use two like action-packed games, you're not really comparing anything. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So he used a game. I can't remember what the game is called, but it was like a Windows game where you used to like you literally just jump around and do little puzzles. And he compared that to like a racing game, and showed that they don't have much aggression in either game. So they don't know where this aggression came from the other one. And that's where it kind of gets like a little shaky for me.
See, you're back on psychology studies again, though.
Well, like, I'm not in the... Well, like, if I was in the biology class, then I would look at more biology studies. Like, I look at my field of study.
I'm just telling you, though, these things don't really happen in biology unless they're from...
No, I agree.
Unless they're in predatory journals or from... think tank groups that are being hired.
No, that's as I said at the beginning of our conversation. I agree with you. Yeah. Those fields, no. But like, I'm in psychology, so that's most of the stuff I see, and you see a lot of problems with like, because like psychology is so much easier to publish it because now it's deemed as a pseudoscience overall. Yeah, so it's been knocked down because of that. It's been knocked down because of what are those people called? the people that believe they can heal people and they would stand up. Because those people were considered to be psychologists at one point. I just can't remember off the top of my head specific names and stuff, but there's a bunch of studies like that, and that's why, like, I'm very skeptical when papers get published.
Right.
It's not that I don't trust... I trust scientists for the most part. It's just... Psychologists?
Okay. Well, that's good.
Psychologists, philosophers...
Philosophy's not a science.
Yeah.
How do you test philosophy?
Exactly.
If you're talking about the existence of God,
social
how do you test that?
Social scientists is like very because like that's you can't generalize social behaviors and stuff like that.
Right.
It's very like.
Well, it's hard when you know at the absolute top of all science.
Yeah.
Is cooking science, and it's hard to sort of keep up with that as biologists and physicists when we have to aspire to the level of cooking science. Yeah. That's just going to be the most robust scientific
as I said, like, there's 3 sciences that are, like, hard to, like, if a scientist publishes something, then it's just like, oh yeah, and then the most of the community agrees with it. It's biology, chemistry,
and cooking.
And physics.
No, cooking's at the top. Yeah, I'm telling you that.
Cooking's at the top.
Cooking is the top science.
When psychologists release a paper, there's always like a other head scientist like, nah.
Yeah, but that's good. That's good. In the scientific community, like arguing, not, you know, what the hell's the word? Sorry, debating and that sort of arguing, that's useful.
Yeah.
Because it can that's what actually sort of you know, fleshes out all the bad shit in theories, and it gives everyone more ideas. Like, that's what really brings it all together, and that's what helps piece this theory together, is having people say, what about this? What about this?
Yeah.
Or what about this? You might be wrong here, you might be right here.
The other problem about psychology, too, is a lot of it's based on the case studies. And case studies is very fine and minute, because it's like, we're looking at one person.
Yeah, and that's a one-person sample size, which doesn't work for statistics.
And a lot of problems with psychology, too, is like, biology is so much easier to get sample size because you can be really like, there's all the tigers. Let's go round up all them tigers.
Well, you say that,
but like in like psychology, you can't be like, okay, we have like how many people in the world? Like 7 billion.
Right.
What's a proper sample size of that?
Yeah.
That's a lot of problem with it because a lot of it is like a lot of like stuff that's submitted as like experimental research is like surveys. That's what a lot of psychology is surveys. And, like, we can get into a whole thing about surveys and how, like, it's hard to, like, when you're putting up, like, that up against, like, DNA, it's like, there's a reason why psychology has become laughable to some people.
This fucking Wikipedia article you have.
Yeah.
A sword representing a penis is hard, sharp, inanimate, and destructive. A snake representing a penis is alive, dangerous, perhaps poisonous, and slimy. I love psychology. I'm in the wrong field. Oh my lord.
No, but with psychology, it's a lot of like uphill battles. That's the only problem I have with psychology.
Yeah, and I mean, a reliance on stats too. Is stats aren't perfect, but
yeah,
in biology we are very reliant on stats, and I don't know if psychology is very reliant on stats. Maybe
yes,
because
it
your
is
sample
too.
size
it's
is
just
small.
The problem with it is like there's so many like outliers, and there's so many like like if you have like with psychology studies, like if there's somebody who like accidentally like answers like, because like a lot of it's just surveys, you have to fill in like questionnaires, and like just the whole process of that is like it's like
iffy data, right?
Yeah, like that's the problem with psychology is like it's like they submit something like we're like 95% sure.
That's pretty good, but I think it's mainly one thing with stats too is you can have a 95% confidence in something, but the theory can be shit because of your data, and like, or sorry, the actual confidence in this thing can be sort of fake or at least not trustworthy. So we say for stats, garbage in, garbage out, which means if you have garbage data, you're gonna have garbage results. It might have a really high confidence interval, but it might not be accurate of what's actually going on.
The other problem with psychology that a lot of people face is like when you're putting in data, but this might be also in biology too, is like when people are putting in data and like putting in like stats or whatever, if they have like some numbers that are like slightly off of what they want to be, they'll actually just manually change it.
Absolutely not. You would get your entire education would be removed if someone caught you falsifying that. In biology, that is zero tolerance.
Yeah, there's zero tolerance in psychology too, but it's still something that's seen and happens, and it's still something that like there was this well-known psychologist, and of course I don't fucking know their name, but like in 2011, she was doing a bunch of research on like brain pathways, and they were looking at like action potentials and stuff, and she was like releasing all this information that the whole aspect of action potentials was wrong, and that this was a new way of doing it.
Yep.
But she falsified like all these papers, and everyone was like believing her, and they were changing their ways, and then they found out like, I think it was like, she started working 2000. It was like 2011 when they caught her.
Yeah.
And that's the other thing that's
so we. In biology, we usually have replicate studies.
Yeah.
Not usually, but we do have replicate studies because we want to catch that.
Yeah.
And so if someone says something, and especially if it's revolutionary, everyone's going to study that as well because they want to make sure that either they're not falsifying data or what they caught wasn't just a one-time thing.
Yeah.
Because often, like, when you look at a whole world, so in ecology you're looking at a whole world, something that happens in one part of the world might not be true that happens in the second part of the world or another part of the world. And so when someone is coming up with this big idea, you want to test that globally. You want to make sure that like you have...
Well, that's what happened in the study too, but what happened was the people that were like testing it and showing that like, oh, this is what you're saying is a bunch of bullshit, right?
Right.
They weren't getting any publicity in the paper, in like the psychology journals or whatever. They weren't getting like published in well-known journals, so it was just kind of like not well known.
Yeah.
Well, her and like other people that were like, I guess, I don't know how they got like the same results as her, but there's some people that were copying and showing it that they had the same results as her. But it just seemed like it was a giant scandal.
Yeah, I mean, that does happen. I think that happens in all forms of science because ultimately scientists are still people, and some of them get greedy.
Yeah. And
some of them falsify their data or they publish in predatory journals without knowing. Like, people get taken advantage of, and sometimes when people are desperate, they make up data, and that does happen. I'm sure it does happen. I don't know how much in biology. I've never looked into that, but I can tell you that is almost like a scientist looking at other scientists. That's almost like the equivalent of murder in a society.
Yeah.
It's like there's no tolerance for that. That's why when people make shit up in science, they get banned from the journal they're publishing, and often they will lose their doctorate or their education entirely.
Well, psychology's a lot better now, but the problem is that it'll always have that
history.
Yeah. And there's a lot of people that have like ruined the name of psychology, which is why it's been knocked down to a pseudoscience.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
Jesus. We can either end it here or we can talk about one other big thing.
What's the other big thing? Let's talk about it.
Do you know what Extinction Rebellion is?
No. Extinction
Rebellion was a worldwide group of protesters which have been protesting climate change, which you've probably heard about them in the news. Yeah. They're all the people that have been blocking traffic, and especially in England they've been huge, but they went around 60 cities in the world, and everyone's losing their goddamn shit because they're not able to get to work in some places because they're like blocking bridges, they're blocking roadways, and they're trying to protest climate change to say, hey, this isn't something that we can just keep going about our daily lives. This is something that we all need to address now before it's too late. However, people are complaining because, like I said, they're really inconveniencing is the word, a lot of people. So I just want you to talk about, I'm surprised you honestly didn't hear about this, but what do you think?
Good on the protesters.
Good on the protesters, okay. A lot of people would not agree with you there.
No, I always believed it this way. Like, yes, I get why people are getting pissed off, and it's more easy to side with the people that are like getting inconvenienced because, like, oh, I don't want that to happen to me, obviously, if I'm late for something. Yeah. But the only way you're going to get people's attention is if you do something big.
Yeah.
And if you have to block a bridge to do it, like, for me, this is something that's worth it. Like
right.
Like, the punishment, like, the reward of fixing our world outweighs the punishment of jail time for these people.
That's fair.
Like, I wouldn't protest personally.
Yeah.
Like, I would just for me personally, I would not block a bridge. But if I was to join in I just wouldn't join a protest because that's just not my personality. I'm a loner.
Yeah.
More often, I just don't like being in crowds. I get claustrophobic.
Yeah.
But I would like to protest. If I did protest, I would I would do it at parks personally,
Uh-huh.
because those are people I feel like I'd be able to relate to more.
Right.
And I'd rather educate the kids. But no, I honestly, good on them.
So that's good that I know kind of where you're coming from, but I'm going to give you some of the reasons why.
So you're going to try to paint me bad now.
I'm going to try to pin you bad. No, I'm like everything. I want to have both sides of the arguments here.
No, this is good. Like I can already see where the other side's coming from.
So yeah, that's perfect because that's what we need to talk about is both sides. But so the one side who are against the protesters, they're saying that, and I'll put even in some of my thoughts on this as well, that this is what people are saying is that a lot of them are just being like fatalists, that they're going out there in the protesting saying it's the end of times, and they're offering little to no solutions. They're just sitting out there and making a fuss, and they're stopping traffic, and they're trying to just essentially protest for protesting's sake and say like, this is a big deal.
Yeah.
And other people are also saying, so they're saying that they're not coming up with solutions, and they're just essentially inconveniencing them for no reason, being fatalists and just protesting to bring awareness but not offer any solutions. Mm-hmm. The other thing they're saying are that they're wasting police resources because a lot of these people, it's gotten so escalated that they actually need police to be there so that things don't escalate. Good. So they're having police go off and help these protesters to make sure, not help the protesters, but to help the public to make sure that these things don't get riled up. Mm-hmm. There's also been reports of people being upset because they're saying that these climate change activists aren't serious because they're just dancing in the streets. They see that people are just trying to have a good time when they're protesting, which is bad for the image of the group. And then just recently in England, one of these protests became violent and people started beating the shit out of each other because some guy was on a train and it was blocking the train from going. And so the Extinction Rebellion, they made an apology for that too and said like this shouldn't have gotten violent. But did you want to comment on any of that? So the fatalists with no solutions.
So let's start with the no solutions thing. I don't think that is as bad as they're trying to show it as, because like even as we talked on here, we don't even have a full solution. I think most of like the solutions people have been pointing out there is like, to be honest, does everybody need a car?
Yeah, right.
Yeah. So it's like simple stuff like that, I think, is what they should be. And when people say that they don't have any solutions, sometimes I get a little, I don't believe that headline that much just because that just seems like a way to just delegitimize the protest.
So I'm going to also put this out here too, and I'm going to say my bias here is that I only believe one of these arguments is good.
Yeah.
Actually, not even good. So I'm just going to say that too, is I'm more on the side. When I first saw these people, I'm like, oh, this isn't right. And then when I started diving into the information, I'm like, I started believing them more and more that what they're doing is correct. When it comes to the no solutions thing, I think the problem is that there are solutions available right now, and everyone in this sort of activists group is pissed off because the solutions are here, but none of them are being implemented.
Yeah.
We're not seeing increases to the research industry for green solutions and green energy.
Yeah.
We're not seeing climate targets set and being fulfilled. People know that these solutions are out there. We're not seeing changes over from carbon, fuel burning cars to green cars, and industry taxation and things like that, where industry are big polluters on this issue.
Yeah.
We're not seeing a lot of these things being solved despite the problems being out there, and I think that's why they're outraged. And it's not that they're not offering solutions, but that's because the solutions are already there.
Yeah, I was about to say, I'm like, isn't the solution just self-explanatory to a lot of people? Like, I thought everybody knows. I know why, like, a lot of big business, like, a lot of people are, like, why a lot of big industry is against it is because it's very cost efficient for it, but it's like, you already have a lot of money.
Yeah.
It's like, come on, this isn't so bad. The only argument in there that I was like looking at that I kind of laughed at in my head is the dancing one.
So that's the one thing.
I have, sorry to interrupt.
Go ahead.
I have no problems with that at all. The thing that I laughed about is like, of course they're gonna put this forward because they're gonna try to, because as soon as someone like has any inkling that like, oh, these might be hippies, that just kills all of it. And like the thing is like not all protests have to be super serious. Like I don't see any problem with them dancing and having a good time. Like you might as well try to have a good time anyways. This protests.
I looked
Because
at
a lot of protests have been successful that are having a good time. Because that's how you get more people to join the protest.
I looked at it a different way. I looked at it as these news articles are focusing on one fucking guy dancing.
Yeah.
The majority of protesters are not dancing. Otherwise, there'd be some funny ass compilations on YouTube.
Yeah.
It's
There'd
just
be some memes about this.
they're just trying to make a fuss, and it's just people being inconvenienced, trying to make the issue seem huge, and they're looking for anything.
Yeah.
To sort of devalue what these people are doing. So, oh, here's one guy dancing. The entire protest is a joke.
Yeah.
And that's what I'm seeing is that argument. The police resources thing, where police resources are being used up. Yes, that is true that they are being used up. I think that's a necessary part here, because if they weren't being used up, I'm pretty certain that some people would have gotten into some fist fights here, especially on roads. When you were in the States, we were seeing people protesting after Trump got elected. People were getting fucking hit
Yeah.
when they were protesting on the highways.
Yeah.
They were just running them down
Yeah.
because there were no police presence. I doubt that would happen if there was a police presence. And so I think that's necessary. And the one thing, too, I will say, the best argument here is that some protests have gotten violent. And I think absolutely, yes, the protesters who got violent should feel entirely ashamed of that. Because your protest is about bringing the public to your side.
Yeah.
Your protest is not about you getting angry and getting mad. Your protest is about you getting change to happen. And that happens when the public is on your side for you to have a meaningful change. And you're not going to do that if you're pissing people off.
Yeah.
You need to do it in a calm way, a non-violent way. You need to actually get people onto your side. Otherwise, your protest is doing the absolute opposite of what it's supposed to be doing. And I think the sort of violence that happened among these protesters is absolutely tragic for both people.
Yeah.
For both the protesters and the ones that got involved with this. Because the protesters lost a huge amount of movement from that, because now they're seen as a violent group.
Yeah.
And that's horrible, because you just lose that sort of backing that you need.
Exactly.
So you cannot have a violent protest, and I agree with people that are against it, because you cannot get involved with that.
Yeah. When it comes to protests, and we're going to probably see more headlines, I hope it stays strong, because the only way you're going to get this issue to move forward is if there's change, and if you keep protesting. Like, if you look at, I don't want to compare it to the same thing as that, because I feel like it was a worse issue at the time, which was like Martin Luther King's movement.
Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The only way you can get something to actually like change and like actually keep it effective is keep it alive and keep protesting.
Right.
And violent protesting doesn't usually work out in the long run. In the short term, if I get the appeal, because like fear, and you get a lot more publicity from like a violent one than a peaceful one, but peaceful one always wins out. And if I was to give a message to the protesters, just keep going, keep blocking the roads. No, seriously, like keep blocking the roads, block bridges.
And then we talked about some of the people, some of the arguments against it, which I think I've debunked most of them, or at least have said that I don't think those are valid arguments. And
I honestly don't even think it's valid to even classify them as a violent group just because of one violent outburst.
I agree. I think that was a mix-up, and
that was just people that happened to get violent that one day. I mean, it's a heated thing, and it is a heated thing. It's gonna happen here and there. That doesn't mean these people are a violent group.
But I do agree that they shouldn't have gotten violent.
No, they should not. The people who've gotten violent should get arrested.
Yeah, for sure.
You can't just let that slide.
Yeah, exactly.
And it is a blow to them, but I hope they recover, and I hope this actually becomes a big movement and change, and we actually see it, because I've been saying this to my friends for years, and mixed success, but
there's no point in trying to piece the world together if you're going to tear it apart through a protest.
Exactly.
So don't get violent. There's no need for that. It's unnecessary. It's childish, really.
Yeah.
Some of the arguments for, I'll just end with this really quickly, is that the longer we wait to address this, the worse the climate change problem is going to get. We still have a lot of people that don't know about the evidence here, and we still have people that don't understand that we can't just go about our daily lives because it's not changing anything. We need actions now. People are getting upset with that, and the longer we wait, this is the more irreversible it's going to get. And we're so reactive as a species that all of the problems we we don't address them proactively. We wait until they get to become a problem, and then we address that, and that's always worse.
That's the one thing I was going to bring up is my biggest piss-off is, well, two of my biggest piss-offs is the whole argument that a lot of people say, like, oh, and I've heard this growing up, and every time I yelled at the person, which is probably not the best response, but they would say, oh, it's the next generation's problem.
Oh, that's the worst.
Fuck you.
Yeah, fuck you.
The other big one I hate, too, and I've noticed recently, is people's ignorance to learning about the environment.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's something people should know more about, because people are just like, oh, climate change, yeah, I get it, nothing I can do. It's like, yeah, there is something you can do.
There's a lot you can do. But that's the thing with this whole issue.
Let's talk about like one small victory that people have actually gotten.
Yeah.
Which is that a lot of places now have, like I noticed at Subway now that they actually have, paper straws over plastic.
Yeah.
I believe everywhere should have that because like we should just try to.
Who even needs a fucking straw anyway nowadays?
Yeah.
Really? Just take your milkshake and fucking muff in on that. Just dive in on that shit.
But, like, yeah, like, I like these small changes. Like, why do we need plastic everything? Like, why can't everyone just have biodegradable bags? I believe that supermarkets, I think this should be the next step we should do, is all supermarkets should remove plastic bags and just have biodegradable ones.
Yeah, we could be doing a lot, and that's the thing.
There's
so many ideas that we could be doing.
Like, the thing is, like, this is not going to be an issue that's going to be solved overnight, and as long as people don't push super major things right now, like, of course we need major changes as well.
Yeah.
But let's baby step this, because if that's the only way you're going to win, is start baby stepping. We got the straws, let's go for the bags now.
It's true. So I think there's the one thing I will say too, is, for a while I was even wondering, it's like, yeah, they're arguing the great things, like, they're trying to say that these problems are going to become irreversible, and they're going to become worse, and we should act now so that everyone's fine. Fuck the people that say this is the next generation's problem, because that's just third-party murder is what I would say.
Yeah, pretty much.
That is total ignorance, and you are killing people.
That's pretty much a nuclear war without any nukes.
That's pretty accurate.
Pretty accurate.
Same result.
Yep.
I will say this, too. We're out there trying to stop the status quo, to say this because we need shit to happen.
Yeah.
They're trying to cause an outrage here. Because they want stuff to change. They want people to know we're upset, we need this to happen, we need this to change. So that politicians can say, here's this huge group of 500,000 people in 60 cities over the world or wherever it was. And they're mad. Let's listen to them. What are their problems? And since then, I'll say this too, since the start of this protest, Britain, which did not have a climate target established cohesively with like the whole government, they have now set a climate target for what they want to meet by 2050 or something like that.
Nice.
So since these protests have happened, things have happened.
Yeah, that's all you can ever ask for. Is there definitely needs to be start of a change. We definitely need to start caring about more of the environment, because you can't just keep passing on our problems to the next generation. You should leave the world better, or if not equal to, than when you entered it.
Yeah.
That's what I believe, at least.
This has been Arrow to the Botany. I'm your host, Big Dick Sick Rick. Join us on our next podcast when we talk about even more controversial things.
Yeah.
Remember to vaccinate your children.
And remember, we're just all meat machines.